all fine. It's not a problem. And so, Jeannie, what I'd like to...
I guess it's like a strain.
Okay, so more a strain for you. Okay, so you feel a strain in your elbows. All right, so what I want you to do is I want you to go to the red ring 3 times, each time coming back to the belly button to refresh and then going back out again. And I want you to start to tune into that strain in your elbows. Okay? All right, very good. And immediately release. And, oh, I forgot to say this. When you come back, I want you to return to the proper action. In other words, I'm not going to let it hang there for a second or two anymore. Okay. All right, because the proper action is smooth pull, abrupt stop, and immediate release.
Okay.
Okay. But before you immediately release, I want you to momentarily notice that strain in your elbow. Okay? Go ahead. Okay, and come back to the belly button in between. Very good. And release. And keep your eye on the bar and stop at the red ring. Notice the sensation and release. And let's do that one more time, noticing the strain in your elbows. Okay? All right, now I'm going to have you do it a couple more times. And what I want you to notice is that the intensity of the strain in your elbows is the same every time. It's always the same intensity or the same volume. Okay? And so I want you to pay attention to that. So let's do it a couple more times and notice how the volume or the intensity is always the same. Go ahead and do that up. Come back to the belly button. And notice how it's always the same volume or intensity. Do you notice that?
Yes.
It's always the same. And this is what we call your just right feel. And as we go through the testing, what you're going to do is 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 times you're going to pull on this bar, and every time you're going to tune into that just right feel. Okay? And that's all you have to do. Now, let's talk a little bit about what happens when you tune into that just right feel and we start getting different scores on the bar. Okay? All right. And so if you could have a seat. And what I'd like to do is give you a little bit more coaching on some of the things that I was doing when I was teaching Jeannie how to get the feel for testing. The first is that you notice that I was tapping the outsides of her elbows. I was touching the inner part where she felt the strain. Indeed, when we were first attempting to find out where the strain was, I said it might be in your shoulders, it might be in the back of your neck, it might be in your elbow, it might be in your forearm. I kept touching her, okay? Because that type of tactile stimulation is valuable because it has the client's focus, their mental focus, go where it needs to go. So at first, it kind of needs to go in this whole area right here, excuse me, and then as we zoom into the right area, then you want to keep providing that tactile response. So don't be afraid, in fact, to touch your clients. In fact, what we want you to do is to use that, because that tactile stimulus is very important to helping a client get to where they can focus. This is how it is that even though it took you a couple of weeks to get all of the aspects of the pull down, this is how it is within 10 or 15 minutes through your expert guidance, we can have a client up and running with testing. And so, having said that, the other thing that I wanted to talk about was the speed of the pull. You notice that I never had her count off 80, 100, 120, 140, 160. What I had her do is I just had her pull at the same speed that I was showing on the bar. Every time she pulled, I said, pull this fast. So she just got into the right speed of the pull by my hand moving across it. And then subsequently and throughout the testing, you'll continue to provide those responses, that type of thing. You'll be reading their body language, things like that. I'll talk more about that in another video coaching session. And the other thing that I want to talk about is what we call show and tell. If there was an element that she did incorrectly, like and you know, in fact there was, and so let's go ahead and bring that back up on tap. I don't know if you caught this, but one time she pulled 10 points past the ring. Okay, and so I want to show you how it is that we gently guide a client through the correction process or the corrective process. So let's go ahead and demo this for you right now. And so Jeannie, I noticed when you pulled on the bar, okay, and so let's have you, first of all, let's just have you replicate what you did. So you pulled 10 points beyond, right? Okay, and when you pulled on the bar, that was very good how you pulled on the bar. And one of the things I noticed, Jeannie, is that as you pulled on the bar, what happened is you went 10 points above the bar. And so what we want to do is we always want to come to an abrupt stop right at the red ring when we're tuning into our just right feel. Okay, but don't worry about it. Everybody gets the hang of this. After you've done this for a while, you'll be a pro at it. It took me a while to get the hang of it too. So let's go ahead and try it again. Okay. So basically, what I did is I did show and tell. Is I showed her what she did, and then I told her, and then I showed her the correct way to do it. But what I did is I anchored the start and the finish of that with affirmative statements. The first affirmative statement that I made was, you did a good job pulling on the bar, or you can say something like, that was really good the way you kept your elbows locked, or that was a good speed of the pull. Find something to compliment them on. And then the other end, at the end of the corrective process, I anchored that with another affirmative statement saying, hey, no worries, you'll get the hang of this in no time. Okay, and the reason why we want to do this is because some people are sensitive to instruction, especially when they perceive themselves as getting it wrong, and we don't want to lower their self-esteem because of course that's going to affect the accuracy of testing. Okay, and I want to talk a little bit more about how to switch from one bar to the next and make hand adjustments. Like for instance, when Jeannie was pulling on it, and if she would have come to a 210 when she got to her 60 or 70%, then I may not necessarily go to the blue bar right away. I might, in that case, say, well, if I get a person in the range of 180 to 190, then maybe all I have to do is have them use the thumb and the ring finger only, or by pinching with the tips of the bar, and you learn this in your initial training, pinching with the tips of your fingers on the outside edges of the bar right there, and have them do it that way to notch it down to something a little more reasonable. Because if you're at a mark of 210, then when you have a positive response, it's going to go all the way to the end of the bar. So we want to keep a person more towards the middle. The reason why I might not go to the blue first is because if you're having a person work at this end where the readings are at 80 or 100, then it's still workable, but the margins of variation depending on the product or the issue they're testing on will be much smaller because we're working from a smaller scale. So it's better to keep it in the 130, 140, 180, 190 range. Keep it in there. And so by just notching her down on the white tester using these, this is the first notch down, and this is the more dramatic notch down by having to do it with their fingertips only, then that can help bring them in the right area. Okay? All right. Let's see what my notes say here. Something I could use right now, it says take a deep breath. Take your time with this. Sometimes it takes a while when you're working with a client. Sometimes people will fall right into this muscle testing. Other times it becomes a challenge for them. Not because one person is better than another, but because everybody is different. And so the reason why it's important for you to take a breath and be patient as you're working with people through the self-muscle testing process is that if you start to become jittery, it's going to wear off on your client. It does. And so it becomes incumbent upon you to maintain a sense of calm and a sense of